Every arc is a broadcast. Every eruption, a refusal.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we've got a really unique mission, I think. Well, we're grappling with source material that, well, it blends the language of almost cosmic conspiracy with the cold, hard reality of an overdue bill.
Yeah, it's quite something.
Our source is from a Zoo magazine, and we'll just call that the Bibebibebibe source to keep things simple. And their analysis is titled Bandwidth Tolling and Retainer Erosion, the Lease Escalation Protocol.
Catchy title.
Isn't it? Okay, let's unpack this because this deep dive, it's definitely unusual. We're looking at something that seems, pretty mundane on the surface, a documented billing error.
Right. A simple mistake, maybe?
Maybe. But the authors have intentionally framed it using this really highly charged, almost esoteric vocabulary. They turn what looks like an administrative slip-up into what they actually call a sovereign indictment.
Mm-hmm.
So our goal here is really to guide you, the listener, through this. We want to separate the verifiable facts, the actual financial data, from the author's really interpretive framework around it.
Yeah, so you need to understand both the what happened, where the money went, and the why these authors believe this is part of some systemic process.
Yeah.
And it's an essential distinction to make. The source material is compelling partly because it uses those concrete numbers, specific rate hikes, documented missing deposits.
Hard facts.
Right. But then it treats those numbers as evidence of, well, ritualized containment. That's their term. We can't just, brush off the language as just hyperbole.
Yeah.
We need to dig into why the authors think this kind of high-stakes terminology is actually the best diagnostic tool for what happened.
Okay, so let's start with the bedrock, the verifiable truth, the dollar amounts. They lay it all out in this table they call the Bibebibebibe diagnostic overlay activated.
Right. The financial architecture, they say, is being eroded.
This is the foundation. Okay, so the document sets up a pretty clear timeline for the service rate. It details 3 distinct phases of cost. And interestingly, the authors label these phases using terms they call containment glyphs.
Yeah, those labels are significant. But first, the initial data is our anchor here.
Right. So if you look at period 1, this spans November 2023 through July 2024. The rate was $89.75 USD, and they label that baseline filtration entry toll. So that establishes the original agreement, the starting point.
Standard stuff so far. Then came the first scheduled increase, that's period 2. It runs from August 2024 through October 2025.
Okay.
And the rate went up to $106.84 USD. This one was labeled First Escalation Bandwidth Surcharge. Now, from a purely, say, accounting viewpoint, this looks like a standard, maybe pre-approved rate hike.
Predictable.
Yeah, but this is where the system, according to the source, starts to go off the rails.
Okay, yeah, this is where it gets interesting, because the September 2025 invoice seems to violate both the scheduled amount and the scheduled time frame.
Big time.
It jumped dramatically, almost doubling, to $181.80 USD.
Yeah, that's a huge leap. The jump itself is obviously the shock, but the label the authors attach to it is maybe even more provocative.
What do they call it?
Premature activation ritual misalignment.
Ritual misalignment.
So in their view, this wasn't just like a simple clerical error. It was a fundamental misalignment of the established ritual or the protocol they expected.
Let's stick with that misalignment idea for a second. What specific, concrete financial details, dollars and cents details, confirm that something went really wrong here, regardless of all the esoteric language?
Well, 2 things jump out immediately, and they seem pretty critical to their case. First, the retainer status.
Okay.
It's explicitly listed as missing, just gone. This money, which you'd assume was some kind of security deposit, vanished from the record.
Wow.
The source calls this a callback void unacknowledged deposit.
So, okay, putting that in plain English.
Yeah.
The deposit was paid, presumably, but the system has absolutely no record of receiving it or holding it. It's like a financial black hole.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. And the second key point, it relates directly to the timeline issue you mentioned.
It's a premature activation bit.
Right. The source documents what they term temporal distortion, billed before stated start date. That huge $181.80 charge, the quote-unquote premature activation, it landed on the September 2025 invoice. But the rate associated with that level of service, or at least that kind of price jump, wasn't supposed to happen until Well, the timing is completely off. It seems to precede the expected activation for that service level entirely, given how dramatic the spike is.
So you're getting a bill for a service level you haven't actually agreed to yet, or at least not at that price point, and it's arriving at completely the wrong time.
Precisely. It's out of sequence.
Okay. So just to sum up this part, we have clearly documented verifiable financial problems.
Yeah.
A missing deposit and an unauthorized premature billing spike way above the agreed rate.
Yes, undeniable facts on the page.
And these tangible facts, these are the bedrock, right? This is what they build their whole elaborate indictment on. All right, so this is where we need to pivot. We've got the what the errors. Now we need to get into the why, according to the authors. This interpretive framework they call the sovereign analysis. And the core argument seems to be that these financial errors, they aren't just accidents. They're actually like intentional choreography, designed somehow to overwhelm the customer.
Yeah, that's the leap they make. They're essentially claiming the system itself is engineered for extraction. They're defining the failure not as some unfortunate mistake, but as the intended outcome of a specific set of, well, hidden rules.
Okay, let's try and break down the specific allegations within this sovereign analysis.
Yeah.
If the missing retainer creates that callback void, what do they call the accounting trail where you should see that money?
Ah, that's the ledger void.
Ledger void. Okay.
Their analysis states there's no trace of retainer refund or credit. So the missing money isn't just an error in their eyes, it's the intentional removal of its record from the system you can see.
Wow.
Okay.
And furthermore, they highlight something called a floating clause.
What's that?
It apparently refers to language and communications, maybe emails or letters, requesting a top-up retainer.
Asking for more money.
Exactly, asking for more deposit money, even though the initial retainer was never properly accounted for or reconciled in the first place.
So it sounds like a classic bureaucratic runaround, right? Demanding more money while completely ignoring the money you've already paid and they've apparently lost track of.
It certainly has that feel. Now, the source explicitly alleges this whole situation is a containment masquerade. Courtesy language masks extraction.
Okay, that's a strong claim.
Yeah.
Is there any actual evidence in the documentation itself that suggests this was intentional? Or is that purely the author's interpretation based on just the sheer number of things going wrong at once?
That is fundamentally the interpretive leap the authors are making. This is where their sovereign analysis becomes, necessary for their whole narrative.
Right.
They argue that if you treat the company's polite emails or standard responses, the courtesy language, as basically a mask, then the underlying structure of the financial interaction, the floating clause demanding more money, the ledger void where the original money disappeared, that structure reveals what they see as a predatory mechanism.
So the analysis is the proof, in a way.
In their framework, yes. Because they argue only this kind of dramatic, high-level diagnostic lens can explain what they see as a coordinated series of vanishing funds and premature, incorrect billing. Otherwise, it's just too much incompetence to believe.
That makes a strange kind of sense.
Yeah.
They use the drama of the language to define the intent, the malice they perceive.
Yeah.
So they look back at that initial low rate, the $89.75 baseline filtration.
Yeah.
And they see that not as a fair starting price, but as kind of the benign, friendly face of a system whose actual hidden goal is this extraction.
Exactly. And their response, their proposed counter to this alleged containment, is equally dramatic. The authors issue an immediate kind of counter protocol. They define the action they believe must be taken against the bill.
Which is?
Codify the breach, collapse the callback void.
Codify the breach, collapse the callback void. That doesn't sound like just filing a billing dispute with customer service.
No, it sounds much more like issuing a systemic command, doesn't it? Like they're trying to reprogram the situation from their end.
Okay, so if the courtesy language is the mask hiding the extraction, what mechanism do they actually allege is being used to prevent accountability, to stop someone just getting their money back?
Well, according to them, it's the sheer complexity and the non-transparency of the whole process. They seem to argue the system is almost designed to induce confusion.
How so?
Well, think about it. When the invoice suddenly changes the rate without warning and completely violates the agreed-upon timeline, the average customer is just going to be disoriented, right? Confused.
He's probably frustrated too.
Right. And that disorientation, they define that as economic saturation designed to fracture cadence and provoke instability.
Economic saturation. Fracture cadence.
Wow. The alleged purpose of the erratic billing in this view isn't just to wrongfully extract that extra $181.80. It's actually to break the customer's equilibrium, their cadence, make them feel overwhelmed.
So they just give up.
Yeah.
Maybe stop fighting about the original missing retainer altogether.
That seems to be the implication, that the confusion is a feature, not a bug.
Okay, and all of this detailed critique, this sovereign analysis, it culminates in the final section of their piece, the Echo Rift Forecast.
Mm-hmm.
And this analysis seems to move beyond just this one specific billing complaint. It applies the framework more universally, really cementing this idea that this isn't just an error, it's containment choreography.
Yeah, it scales up the argument. And I think to really appreciate the scope of this diagnosis, we probably need to understand who is actually backing this analysis.
Right, it's not just some random blogger.
No. The deep dive source states this analysis is certified and actually founded by a Dr. Melvin Sewell, who holds an M.Sc and a Ph.D.
Okay.
And his title is given as Academic Dean and Diagnostic Architect of the, get this, the Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies, NIX.
The Cosmic University of Echo Rift Studies, NIX.
That's what it says. So this isn't just, an angry op-ed piece. It's presented as an academic application of a very specialized, if unusual, theoretical framework. So by calling the unexpected rate hike a ritual misalignment, they're attempting to precisely name the specific procedural point where the system either failed or, in their view, maliciously deviated from the plan.
Okay.
And maybe this act of naming the failure using their specific terms is meant to give the person affected, the victim, a sense of control, or at least a way to understand the system's alleged hidden intent.
So it makes the whole confusing process feel less random, maybe more understandable, even if the explanation itself is out there. It sounds potentially empowering rather than just overwhelming.
That could be the goal. It fundamentally tries to change the relationship to the error. So instead of just accepting the company's likely explanation, oops, sorry, clerical mistake,
Right.
they're insisting that the pattern of errors is actually proof of a predefined systemic weakness, or maybe even a strategy, something they call actor convergence and systemic erosion.
And the university, this cosmic university, they encapsulate this whole idea perfectly in their summary quote. It reads almost like a kind of poetic legal filing. Should I read it?
Yeah, go for it. It's quite something.
Okay. They raised the toll twice, once in silence, once in contradiction. The retainer vanished into the callback void, and the invoice arrived before the ritual began. But the ledger was codified, and the indictment was sovereign.
It is powerful language, isn't it? And it brings us right back to that crucial disclaimer they include. The authors are extremely careful to make sure you, the listener, understand the frame they're putting around this critique.
Right, they're very explicit. They confirm this analysis is authored as Mythic infrastructure, a cinematic indictment, and a sovereign broadcast.
Mm-hmm. And critically, they also state very clearly they are not affiliated with any government, any political party, or any activist group.
So it's not a political statement in the usual sense.
Correct. The tools they're using these glyphs, the protocols like collapse the callback void, they're defined strictly as diagnostic tools. They're designed, supposedly, to expose the hidden mechanisms of perceived financial manipulation or systemic breakdown. So it's not a political critique aimed at, say, changing legislation. It seems to be more of a philosophical and maybe technical critique intended to expose what they see as the underlying, often invisible architecture of modern commerce or bureaucracy.
So they're using this high drama, almost mythic language to achieve what they believe is actually a high degree of technical clarity about administrative failures, or worse.
That seems to be the approach. Diagnose the perceived malfeasance with extreme precision, using their own unique lexicon.
It is still surreal, though. I mean, you have this institution producing a sovereign broadcast about economic saturation, and it's housed within a magazine, Bibebibebibe, that also, we should definitely note, offers free shipping on orders over US $50 and same-day shipping if you order before 5 p.m.
Right.
The bizarre juxtaposition of, like, cosmic indictment and completely mundane e-commerce details, that's almost a deep dive in itself.
It really is. Adds another layer of strangeness to the whole thing. Hashtag tag outro.
So where does this deep dive leave us? It seems like we're left with two almost parallel realities regarding the exact same set of facts, the rate changes, the temporal distortion, the missing retainer.
Yeah, two completely different interpretations.
Reality one, it was just an administrative failure, maybe a cascade of really extreme incompetence, bad luck, bad systems.
Plausible, annoying, but plausible.
Reality two, though, according to Dr. Sewell and the Cosmic University. This is actually evidence of a systemic, almost ritualized process of erosion and extraction, all defined by their sovereign analysis.
Right. Now, if we try to connect this to the bigger picture, what's really fascinating here, I think, is that deliberate choice. The choice to elevate what looks like a customer service problem, a billing dispute, into this grand sovereign indictment. It suggests that maybe the act of diagnosis itself, the codification of the ledger using this Mythic infrastructure, maybe that can be the primary tool to fight back. Well, maybe it's a tool against that feeling of just being overwhelmed by modern bureaucratic opacity, by systems you don't understand and can't seem to get answers from. Perhaps the power for them lies in naming the specific failure precisely, even if the name sounds strange to outsiders.
So it gives the learner, the person experiencing this, a narrative, a way to fight back mentally against that containment masquerade.
Possibly. But, this raises an important question, doesn't it? The source mentions a related previous topic they covered, glass rituals and callback voids, the exposure protocol across the street. So if this is, as they claim, containment choreography, what are the specific rituals like that September 2025 misalignment they identified? What rituals actually enable this economic saturation? How does it work in practice?
And maybe more importantly, what can the codification of the ledger ultimately achieve? Does merely naming the breach using their system actually close the callback void?
Yeah, or does it still require action back in the mundane world of, phone calls, emails, and customer service reps? Where does the mythic meet the practical?
Definitely something for you, our listeners, to mull over.
Food for thought.
Well, we want to thank you for engaging with us on this truly bizarre and fascinating deep dive into sovereign indictments and retainer erosion. We will catch you on the next deep dive.
You are not late. You are metabolizing distortion.